The first and longer part of this talk will be about my father, Ernest Claude Millard, 1897 to 1996. The Great War was a very formative period of his life. He wrote down his memories for me and was interviewed by the Imperial War Museum. I have his diaries from 1996, 1997. Sorry, what am I talking about? 1916, 1917, and 1918. His older brother, Leonard, was rejected for active service because of his bad eyesight and served in the Army Service Corps, but he will appear during the talk. The second part is about my mother's family, and most of that will be dedicated to my mother's two oldest brothers who were killed, the first in Mesopotamia and the second in France. Her two oldest sisters were nurses, and the third brother, Maurice, the father of Jill, if she joins us, left Marlborough College in 1918 and then joined the nascent Royal Air Force. My mother spent most of the war at school, and the school was run by the sister of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, together with her younger sister, Sybil. My mother spent the war at a school run. Oh, sorry, I've said that before already. My father left a personal archive, which consisted not only of artifacts and photographs, but also of several files of handwritten memoirs, some in the form of narrative, but mostly in notes jotted down as he remembered people. Events and incidents. In the late 1990s, I tried to edit and annotate these notes into a chronological order, also making transcripts from extracts of interviews. I shall quote from these sources and his diaries, hoping that it will be obvious when I am using his words and not my own. I should like for you to hear my father as he began the first of that series of interviews for the Imperial War Museum. Answering the initial questions about his family and boyhood. He was understandably anxious about them, in spite of thorough preparation. There are lapses of memory which were not characteristic of him even at 97, in the spring of 1995. I shall just play about 5 minutes, and please bear with me as I try to link up slides while playing the recording.
Mr. Millard, Reel 1. Could you tell me when and where you were born, Mr. Millard?
I was born in Vintner Villas on Putney Common on the 29th of December 1897.
And could you tell me a bit about your family background?
Well, my father was the youngest of 13, my mother the youngest one of 10. And father was at Malvern College, at Brighton College originally, went on to Malvern College with Marlborough as a preparatory school. That's a bit of a muddle, I'm sorry.
All right.
And then, as there was little money in the family, although they lived in a big house in Birtwood Grange, Somerstown, Father with £200 launched on his own, and was a tea taster. That affected his throat, so he went into the paper market.
What exactly did he do in the paper market?
He sold paper for Millingtons. He was with the Millingtons, the paper people who were bought up by John Dickinson's. And then he started on his own printing because my uncle was head of Anglo-American Oil Company. He was sent over from America for Standard Oil Company of New Jersey. He married my mother's sister, and Father had an opportunity of producing print for that company, and that we continued to work for them. And either Father or myself went up every day to visit them to collect work for their benefit.
And how many were there in your family, brothers and sisters?
I had two, an elder brother and sister. My sister was 7 years older, my brother 4 years older.
And what do you remember of your childhood then, before you went to school? Was it any memories?
Oh, very happy days. We lived in a little house in Rusholme Road, Putney. From there I went to pre-prep school in called Willington, run by Miss Hales.
What age would that be? What age would that be?
Oh, when I was 7, about 1905. And then
what was that school like? That was pre-prep.
That was pre-prep. Oh yes, a very happy little school. I can't say very much more. I was very contented, and walked down there and walked back home to Putney. And then in 1907, I followed my brother to Bilton Grange, the prep school for rugby.
Bolton Grange?
Bilton.
Where's that?
2 miles from Rugby. It was a preparatory school for rugby.
So you were aboard of that?
1911 to 1907 to 1911.
Were you lonely going off to school? I mean, did you feel homesick?
No, not particularly. It was a very happy school, a very good school. It's in some ways not like the modern days where parents go down every fortnight or so. My parents came down once a year in summer term, that was all. We were away for 3 months, got on with it, came back, and all very happy, really.
What type of an education were you getting there?
Oh, pretty high class. It was one of the finest preparatory schools in the country.
Was it classically based or modern or just the 3 R's?
Well, I don't know that one could say whether it was. Well, my brother left there as a Greek classical scholar, if that's any qualification. And he went on to Russell.
So you could study from a broad variety of subjects.
Oh yes, it was open. You had the classics and the other side of education.
From Bilton Grange Prep School, I went on to Lancing in 1911. The chapel was in prominence and rather too much to expect, with matins and evensong, and on Sunday early service. Matins and evensong and house prayers 8 3/4 hours per week. Nonetheless, it presented a oh, I see what's happening. There you are. Sorry, it's right now. It presented a right foundation. Work was not my strong point. I got my house colours for the 5-mile race, 5th at 15 years. I ran for the school and the South London Harriers. I got into the first 11 games as a colt in 1913. Two special friends were later to be General Sir Neil Ritchie and Admiral James Eccles. All the boys at Lancing, except those with physical disabilities, were members of the Officer Training Corps under Lieutenant Colonel Hay Brown, later killed in action commanding a battalion of the Sussex Regiment. I feel sure that with this background, my contemporaries were a great asset in training the new armies at the early part of the 1914-18 war. Sadly, on my return to Lancing as an old boy in 1919, I found 90% of those killed in that war were my contemporaries. I left in March 1914, aged 16 years and 3 months, in order to serve a 2-year apprenticeship in my father's printing factory. Under normal circumstances, I should have obtained a commission in the infantry direct from school OTC. The family had moved to 166 West Hill in 1911 and stayed there until 1923. My father was confirmed at Wandsworth Church by the Bishop of Kingston on the 11th of June 1914. My first business call as an apprentice in my father's printing factory, I was called into his office and told to go to the East India Docks. I was to look for SS Endurance, ask for Mr. Ernest Shackleton, and take particulars of all his requirements for stationery, printing, and logbooks for his Antarctic voyage, on which he sailed on the 2nd of August 1914. Mr. Shackleton handed me over to Mr. Wild, who showed me around the ship and the huskies for the expedition, with the difficulty of keeping them fit with exercise. My father also met the members of the crew. As in 1913, the family took their annual holiday in Belgium, leaving on the 29th of July 1914, arriving at the Grand Hotel West End on the 31st of July. After one night, we heard from Madame de Bergman, whose father was the head of police, that the Germans had advanced into Luxembourg. 2 German admirals were in the lounge, and when a small boat went by, a tug, I believe, my sister announced, "The German fleet are here." We hastily packed and caught the last boat to leave Ostend with luggage. The crossing took 12 hours to move along the coast in case of submarines. The shortest journey across the Channel to Dover, the date was the 2nd of August. 2 days later, Great Britain declared war on Germany. In common with many of the Great War veterans, my father described the German troops as the Boche. The term occurs far too many times to alter it for those who might, understandably, now find such a term offensive. Please therefore accept my apologies on his behalf in advance. With conscription at coming back to quoting him now, with conscription at 18.5 years, I volunteered earlier, and unfortunately the Artist Rifles, the Inns of Court, and the HAC were all full up in 1916. The only alternative was the University of London, which I joined at 18.25 years, for training at cadet schools and, in fact, living at home. In 1915, walking down Keswick Road from my home at 166 West Hill to East Putney Station with my cousin, Lieutenant Frank Kennard Davis, RFA, he persuaded me to try for a commission in the Royal Field Artillery. I was ordered to report to the Royal Horse Artillery Cadet School at St. John's Wood in October 1916. We had to mount and dismount with heavy boots, known as ammunition boots. Drop your reins, quit your stirrup, and take that jump all in one go, sometimes jumping bareback. On to Lark Hill for firing practice in the depths of winter, when the east wind blew between the boards and the stove pipe. That winter was the coldest in living memory. Father was commissioned into the Royal Field Artillery on the 26th of May, 1917. His father saw him off on the 11 a.m. train from Waterloo on 9th July 1917. It was difficult at 19 saying goodbye to family and home, and I had a momentary depression. Father was sent on the junior leaders course and then reported on the 23rd of September to D Battery 4.5 howitzers, 21st Division, 90, I'm quoting again, 95 Brigade on the wagon lines in Diggiebush up at Ypres. The 21st Division had been sent there to take over from the 30th Division. I met Lieutenant Dean down the line for 2 days' rest. We had drinks, and he showed me how to play the bones with one hand. At 8 a.m. on the 24th of September, he rode back to the battery position near Hill 60 on the Verbanden Road, south of Ypres, and was killed by shell fire at 10 a.m. I was immediately posted up to the battery near Larchwood Tunnels to replace him. So my father was already in charge of a battery on his first day of action. My first night in action was quiet. I slept in a dugout on my own. At 12 o'clock the next day, 26th of September, as we were not doing a shoot, I was ordered to report to the adjutant of Brigade 2095. 100 yards away in Larchwood Tunnels, when all hell opened up. The Boche opened fire with 5.9-inch shells in our battery position, which had been sighted by a Boche observation balloon. They put every gun out of action, 2 of which were blown up and irreparable. Exactly 24 hours after I had been in action for the first time. I should have shown you that map just now. That's a map of the area around Ypres. I'll keep that on for a moment so you can see it. The infantry had advanced, so we were ordered to build a battery position forward on Sanctuary Wood, south of Hooge, on the Menin Road, where we remained for 6 weeks. That area had been shelled for years on end, and was still being shelled as an area shoot, shelling at random every so often and continuously, which called for 3 days in action and 2 days rest on the wagon lines. The movement each way was some 5 miles to Diggiebush. It had been shelled as the front line with the German dugout with 4 inches of reinforced concrete, which withstood a direct hit. The opening, a window without glass, was of course facing the German line. It was about 10 feet, I'll show you a picture of that in a moment, 10 feet square by 4 feet deep, conditions were appalling. We were on the old front line ground, churned up by shellfire, and when the rains came, it was a sea of mud. Sanctuary Wood had received a great deal of shelling, and with the autumn rains, which were heavy that year, the mud turned to almost liquid mud, and the bodies of the Boche were turned up by the shells. We were in that area for a matter of a couple of months. We took part in the heaviest bombardment of all time. The area was full of artillery, 18-pounder batteries, 4.5 howitzers, 60-pounders, a fine piece, 6-inch and 8-inch howitzers, 6-inch guns and railway artillery. This bombardment was a magnificent spectacle. Watches were synchronized by means of a man as a brigade runner who visited every position so that at 0 hour of the intended barrage, the whole area of batteries opened fire within a couple of seconds. No wonder the German prisoners were a frightened lot of human beings. My battery was pushed forward from the Verbanden Road, Hill 60 position, and was in Jackdaw Trench on Sanctuary Wood, south of Hoog, and 200 yards west of Clapham Junction, through which much of the infantry moved up and down on relief. Sanctuary Wood was in low ground, where we received a great deal of gas shelling. 24 hours was the longest time. I had to wear my gas mask and to work out shoots, sometimes with our infantry, quite close to the Boche lines. In a gas mask, with the light of a candle, was by no means easy, especially as sometimes the infantry did not realize that with shrapnel, the shell bursts overhead and the contents of pellets are thrown forward into the German lines. I soon became the senior subaltern, and it was up to me to look after the men. Oh yes, I came down from the battery position. This might explain about this talk and this painting. I came down from the battery position to go up the wagon lines at Diggy Bush from Sanctuary Wood.
Yeah.
Could you please mute yourself? Thank you. It was a very dry, cold day, and I decided to walk through Ypres, leading my charger and my groom and his charger. And I saw this painting in Piccadilly sometime in 1918. And it was without doubt myself, because the frost was only on the ground for a matter of an hour or two. Could you please mute that? Or mute?
I think she's on the phone, Michael. You might need to mute her. Helen?
Can you mute her, please?
You're the only one who can do that. Yeah.
I'll do it. No, Patty should do it.
Okay.
Helen?
Okay.
That should do it. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Sorry for the... Thank you for all bearing up with all the problems I'm having with this at the moment. Thank you. Coming down the line, I picked up a loose charger from the Hussars. I told my groom to saddle it up next morning for me and try it out for movement with the guns. My groom reported that the charger was not on the line. But in its place was Manji the Mule, with a label round its neck in capital letters, "With love from the Australians." Father then went to Arras briefly, and in December he was posted to the Somme. In the observation posts at Epie on the Somme, up in the attic of a house, there was a rattle on the door, which prompted one to shout out, "Who the hell's there?" Back came the reply from the corps commander, i.e. the general, who put me through my paces on positions in the enemy line, which, to my relief, proved satisfactory. We parted friends. On the 15th of December, the brigade runner arrived with my leave warrant from 16th December to 30th December, covering Christmas and my 20th birthday on the 29th of December 1917, the day before I returned. You have no conception of the joy of a leave warrant in the UK. Coming up on train, the whole country looked as if it had been tidied up for me especially. Even the hedges looked trimmed. Everything looked spick and span. Whoever that is, please mute themselves. It was such a contrast to the untidiness of France. Leave soon went by, and I returned to France. So I meant to show you that one just now as well. At Epie, I was in a section of guns isolated from battery in DX to do the shoots on the main position silent, although we could not conceal the position from the Boche photographer. The small village of Epie is only just behind the British front, facing, or rather was, only just behind the British front, facing the Hindenburg Line. Harry Fox, whom I met with my father, had been at Marlborough, and the college archival website has his memoirs and diaries. He described his fellow officers in the battery, including my father, in a letter to his parents dated the 17th of March 1918. Millard, the youth from Lancing College, who was with me at censored, he acts as mess secretary and is utterly useless. We run short of porridge or butter, and it is about a week before he remembers to get some more. Also, he cannot keep accounts, but he can keep us amused and is a good, stout fellow. The Bolsheviks in Russia made peace with the Germans, so that in March 1918, the Germans, having transferred their troops from the Eastern Front, were able to launch Die Kaiserschlacht, known to history as the Ludendorff Offensive, in the last desperate attempt to break through the Allied lines on the Western Front. Father was in Gough's Fifth Army, which took the brunt of the Imperial battle. When the attack started at 4 a.m. on the 21st, the conditions were, in theory, in favor of the Germans. But in fact, on the ground, there was a mixture of fog and gas. With bad and very short visibility, I lost myself in front of my guns. I lost my kit, and missed a bottle of whiskey in the mess. By the way, that's Harry Fox on the bottom right corner and my father on the bottom left corner. The onslaught of massive artillery barrages synchronized along the line, this is me, and the enormous concentration of advancing German troops forced the British and French into desperate retreat. After our retreat, in the Fifth Army, the 21st was sent up to the Aisne for a rest, taking over from the French. On the 23rd of April, Father had a surprise visitor when his brother Leonard was able to locate me in my battery position at Morne-les-Descartes, near Camel Hill, back in Flanders. The batman, who you can see on the right, soon relieved a farm of chicken. The farm 100 yards away had been shelled, and the farmer and his family had been evacuated as a temporary measure. On his return, he discovered several chickens were missing, believed killed in action. We had hot roast chicken for lunch, after which Leonard found his way back to his ASC mess in Cassel. In the middle of May, we entrenched at Hazebrouck on the Aisne with 3 other divisions, the 8th, 25th, and 50th. The weather was lovely, which was looked upon as a right after the Somme retreat. They then went to Commissi, where he was moving from one pit to the others through a trench adjoining a 2-gun pits, when a 5.9 shell landed 2 yards ahead in the bank of the trench and failed to explode. I'm writing this 74 years later, forever blessing the Krantz factory musician worker who put the wrong thing in the wrong place in the fuse. Soon after midnight on the 27th of May 1918, the Boche put on a heavy bombardment and followed it up with an attack. The Boche penetrated the wood below the Bois de Rheims and captured C Battery on the left from the rear. We finished up in action, looking down on Rheims. Rheims was never occupied by the Germans. I had 5 lives in 1 hour on the 27th of May, when 5 5.9mm shells landed within 5 yards of myself, including right outside the dugout, round a bend in the bank, the other side of the traverse of the trench. To say nothing of a machine gunner who could not hit me for toffee apples, much as he tried or I dodged. 21st Division was so badly mauled, we were no longer an effective fighting unit. The division was reduced again, from 350 to 100 men per battalion. Many only 18 years of age and too few for operations. We were sent down the coast to Trouville. From the coast near Trouville, we moved south to the Somme again. We were in action in Mailly, a quiet part of the line, when the Boche started on the 29th of July and bombarded us with mustard gas, during which time we had a direct hit on my dugout with a combination shell of high explosive and phosgene. The concentration of mustard gas blinded me, and the phosgene probably accounted for my passing out for a number of years in civilian life. They took me to the casualty clearing station, and from there to No. 2 Red Cross Hospital in Rouen, and then evacuated me back to the UK on the 15th of August to clear the hospital for the casualties in the final advance that month, which unfortunately I did not take part in. My father recovered his sight in 3 days, which he attributed to the attentions of a beautiful French nurse. I was at Depot R.A. Woolwich from August 1918 and was in the mess when the armistice was declared at 11 a.m. on the 11th of November. At 12 o'clock, the mess was out of champagne, so we went up the town to find Piccadilly and all around packed solid with people. Later, I went to Murray's dance club at tea time. The place was also packed solid, to the joy of Mrs. May, the owner. Finally, I joined my family, who had seats at the theatre for Violet Lorraine and George Robey in The Big Boys Are Here. That was at the Alhambra in Leicester Square, which is now the site of the Odeon Cinema. My demobilization came on the 10th of February 1919, the very day I was gazetted a full lieutenant. Father took a £10 discharge payment for being gassed. Very briefly, the Second World War. In the Second World War, my father commanded a battery on the East Coast, before one of his best friends, my mother's brother-in-law, Major Neville Clark, asked him to join him in the War Office as a staff captain, with responsibility for Royal Artillery officers' postings. In 1944, he joined Eisenhower's staff at Chafe on the POW executive in Versailles for 6 months. Major Millard took part in the VE celebrations on the Champs-Élysées and then on to Frankfurt. On one of his visits to the Grand Duke of Hesse-Darmstadt, Father met two of the Kaiser's granddaughters, the daughters of the Crown Prince Wilhelm. Losing the page. In July 1945, Father was posted to the British military mission in Copenhagen as DAAG, Deputy Assistant Adjutant General, and organized the Rhine Army golf team for the Queen's Birthday Cup against the Danish team. He was then posted as DAAG to the British military mission in France, in Paris, in September 1945. He'd voluntarily signed on for another year, with responsibilities for both honours and awards, and also work on war crimes, having the head of the Paris Gestapo chained to his bed, and also tracing SS soldiers who had shot POWs in the Vosges. The SS general came through his hands for trial. This is what Tom recognizes, or at least the background of this. Tom, who grew up with me too. Yep. He was awarded the Légion d'honneur and the Croix de Guerre avec Palme. If you look carefully at this picture, if you see the figure on the bottom extreme left corner, the general taking salute, that is Charles de Gaulle. Father was demobilized in August 1946. Now on to the other side of the family, rather more briefly. My mother, Doris Mary Clark, was the 6th of 11 children born to Charles Herbert Clark, a stock jobber, and his wife, Edith. They had 5 girls and 6 boys. By 1918, there were only 2 sons still alive. My mother was born on the Tuesday, the 2nd of December, 1902, at 5 Vanbrugh Terrace, Blackheath, then in the county of Kent. The family then moved to Blindley Heath, to the first of their homes called Langsmead. The Victorian History Group might be interested to know that the drawing room had original Morris curtains. In 1908, grandfather built the second Langsmead in Blackdown Road, Perford, and the family moved there, remaining there until 1918. It had a large oak-panelled hall with a billiard table on wheels, which could be wheeled away under the staircase. My grandfather prized the grass tennis court. Two of my mother's older sisters served as nurses in the First World War. Mabel was born in April 1890 in Finchley. This is the school that my mother went to later, which was run by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's sister. She went to Granville House in the proximity of Beachy Head, now Eastbourne. The school no longer exists, but one that does is where Hilda went. Hilda was born on the 16th of April, 1891, also in Finchley. She also went to Granville House and then on to Wickham Abbey from 1906 to 1908, where her younger sister Eileen also went later. Many of the photos that I shall use of the family come from a remarkable family album which Hilda kept from 1912 onwards. It shows graphically the transition from peacetime to wartime. That's Basil's 21st birthday weekend party, house party. I have no information about Mabel during the First World War, except that there are photographs of Mabel as a nurse, probably as a VAD like Hilda. The Voluntary Aid Detachment, VAD, was formed in 1909 with the help of the Red Cross and the Order of St. John. During the war, these volunteers, drawn mainly from the aristocracy and the upper middle classes and from the public schools, provided additional nursing care for the armed forces. The summer of 1914, there were 2,500 VADs in Britain, with 74,000 volunteer members, 2/3 of whom were women. Hilda's album provides a glimpse of these nurses in the care of those suffering from physical wounding or maiming, or possibly what was then referred to as shell shock. Let me take a short break from the narrative to show you some of these photographs. Hilda on the extreme right of that photograph. And finally, some photographs of German prisoners of war as early as October 1914. Her future husband, Uncle Neville, was also Hilda's second cousin and won a military cross in Mesopotamia. I found this identification belonging to Hilda in a suitcase which Neville kept, full of his papers and artifacts from the Great War in both India and what is now Iraq. Now to the two brothers I was mentioning earlier. Charles, and he took his father's first name, and you will notice the second one will take his father's second name. Charles Basil was born on the 16th of May, 1893, at home, Glenwood, Hollywood Park in Islington. He went to Tunbridge School, where he joined the OTC and was in it for 2 years. He is listed by the school as arriving in the summer term for the summer term in 1907 and playing in the football 15, i.e. rugby, not soccer, from the year of 1910 to 1911, leaving at the end of the summer term 1911. We visited the school last year and were taken around by the archivist. He then went and joined his father, becoming a clerk in the Stock Exchange with Clark and Roberts. Basil joined D Draft Company of the Honourable Artillery Company on the 9th of August 1914 as a private. His height was recorded at 5 feet and 7 inches, girth as 39 inches. He went overseas in the 1st Battalion Infantry as part of the BEF to France from the 18th of September until the 8th of July 1915. He took part in the First Battle of Ypres as his battalion was in the trenches with the 8th Brigade. They were shelled while digging trenches. In November, he entered the frontline trenches near Kemmel, later at Spanbroek-Moulin, which in what is now Herbeland. They were stationed there from the 15th of December until the 7th of 1914 to the 7th of February 1915 in F trenches. Christmas Day was spent in the trenches, the now famous Christmas 1914. It is unclear where the battalion was exactly in the north of the Ypres salient throughout April and May 1915, but it faced the full fury of the German attack, with orders to hold it out to the last man. Basil was therefore also in the Second Battle of Ypres, which ended on the 25th of May 1915. Later, the battalion was at Hooge and briefly in Sanctuary Wood. In many locations, my father followed unknowingly in his footsteps in the Third Battle of Ypres. Basil went home on the 9th of July 1915 in order to be attached to the Royal Field Artillery Special Reserve, for which he applied for a commission on the same day and was gazetted 6 days later. Formally, he returned to the HSE, but his period of mobilization with the regiment ended on the 8th of July, and he was given 3 days' leave. Basil was discharged in consequence of being appointed a commission in the Royal Field Artillery Special Reserve. My mother remembered meeting him as he came home for the last time. He had to undress outside as his clothes were covered with lice from the trenches. After 3 months of training in England, Basil left Liverpool on the 14th of November 1915 and disembarked at Cape Helles on the 5th of December. There he took part in intense fighting and was in the last boat to leave there when the evacuation of Gallipoli was carried out. When the evacuation was carried out from Helles. His gun was successfully brought away, but he lost all his kit, left burning on the beach. He was then posted to A66th Brigade to Gallipoli on the 6th. He spent 4 weeks at Gallipoli, being attached to D's 66th Brigade before embarking for Alexandria on the 4th of January 1916, where he rejoined A66th Brigade. On the 14th of February 1916, he embarked at Port Said and his commission was confirmed 10 days later. He disembarked at Basra on the 6th of March. The brigade then proceeded upriver. Basil went with them in operations for the relief of including the attack on Saniyat. Sorry, I meant to show that photograph as well before we come on to the last one. They're out of order. I do apologize. That one I have a framed copy of. The Tunbridge Great War Archive, which contains, oh gosh, I've been missing these photographs. I do apologize. That's a photograph of him in uniform. And here, the photo, what I missed out showing you is from Uncle Neville, in fact, this map of Mesopotamia as it was then, which is, of course, modern-day Iraq. The Tunbridge Great War Archive, which contains this photo, graphically described how Basil was killed, Tunbridge School Archive. I quote, at about 5 p.m. on the 21st, April the 21st, 1916, he is returning to his battery from the observation post in the front trenches and had to cross a small stretch of open ground. Just before he gained the trench, a sniper's bullet struck him at the base of the skull, killing him instantaneously. His commanding officer wrote of him, he was a gallant, sturdy fellow, always bright and cheery, and efficient, and deeply mourned by us all, while his major wrote, his cheery manner and unfailing good temper made him exceptionally popular with the men. He was invaluable to me, as, in spite of the short time he had been serving, he was a most capable officer, as well as a most loyal friend. Sidney Herbert was born at Glenwood on the 15th of December 1896. He went to Marlborough College in September 1910, where he joined the OTC and played in the Cricket 11 in 1914 with an average of 26 runs. In an article entitled Public School Cricket in 1914, which appeared in the 1915 Wisden, E.B. Noel listed Sidney as among Marlborough's really promising newcomers. Right, that's Sidney at Marlborough College. I actually visited a few years ago, and I managed to find the spot where that photograph was taken. Sidney left Marlborough College on the 28th of July 1914, having been offered a place at King's College, Cambridge. The Master of Marlborough certified that he had attained a good standard of education and to his good moral character for the last 4 years. The College Roll of Honour states that he had originally chosen a career in the Navy, but on the outbreak of war, wishing to serve as soon as possible, he took a commission in the Special Reserve of the Wiltshire Regiment. He was at the time a corporal in the OTC, and both the adjutant and the officer commanding the OTC recommended him for a commission in the Special Reserve Officers. The report from Major Hopkins of the RAMC dated the 12th of September 1914 recorded Sidney's height as 67 inches and weight as 334 pounds. His vision of both eyes was assessed as 6'6". 6 days later, he was recommended for a commission in the 3rd Reserve Battalion of the Wiltshire Regiment stationed at Devizes. He became a second lieutenant on the 29th of September 1914. The 3rd Battalion was a depot training unit which trained drafts for overseas service and carried out home defence units. It moved on mobilisation to Weymouth, going in April 1915 to Dorchester, but returning in July and forming part of the Portland garrison. There are photos of him there in Weymouth in 1915. Sidney joined the Royal Flying Corps on the 1st of August 1916. The brief summary of service gives only the rarest amount of information. On the 1st of August 1916, he was appointed flight officer to 22 Squadron, RFC, and moved to home establishment on the 19th of October. 22 Squadron was equipped that year with F-2B Bristol fighters. Sidney was awarded the Military Cross on the 14th of November 1916. His citation reads, Lieutenant Sidney Herbert Clark, Wilts, SR and RFC, for conspicuous skill and bravery. He has done fine photographic work, often working far above the lines and being heavily attacked by superior numbers of enemy machines. On one occasion, with another officer, he brought down one of 5 enemy machines which had attacked him. On the 29th of September 1917, he was awarded the Bar posthumously. There was a long citation published in the London Gazette on the 8th of January 1918 for conspicuous gallantry and devotion to duty in carrying out contact patrols, reconnaissances, and artillery observations. He has frequently engaged bodies of hostile infantry at low altitudes, causing them heavy casualties, and although continually subjected to attacks from hostile machines and heavy machine gun fire from the ground, which considerably damaged his machine, he completed his work on every occasion. On one occasion, he took some exceptionally successful and valuable photographs, and you'll see a few in a moment, of the enemy's wire from a height of 1,200 feet, and has also carried out a number of successful shoots in cooperation with the artillery. He had returned to England in October 1916 and arrived back in France, posted to 16 Squadron RFC on the 28th of April 1917. We've almost finished, by the way. His wartime photograph album begins with a few photos of his time at Weymouth in 1915, but most were taken in France in 1916 and 1917 with the Royal Flying Corps. There are several reconnaissance photographs, including some taken before and after bombardment, and one taken during a British gas attack. A number are taken of aeroplanes in various conditions, including his own machine, several of his fellow officers, and this one, of members of the ground crew. His observer, Lieutenant Wallace, is photographed with him, and there is a particularly good one with Lieutenant McFarlane in 1916. On the 2nd of April 1917, Sidney was promoted to a full lieutenant, being gazetted on the 16th of May, and on the 10th of August, to captain and flight officer, flight commander, being gazetted on the 24th, and thus moved to number 16 Squadron, which was first formed at Saint-Omer, then to number 1 Aeroplane Depot at Saint-Omer. Number 1 depot was a base repair maintenance depot with a pilot's good pool attached to ferrying new aircraft to their respective squadrons and bringing back salvage and spare parts when available. By 1917, it had nearly 4,000 men on its strength, involved in all aspects of RFC's main duties, and it held a pivotal role in the battles of the Somme and Third Battle of Ypres, issuing no less than 930 aircraft and rebuilding 240 more. On the 4th of September, the dreaded telegram was sent to his father. Deeply regret to inform you that number 10 stationary Saint-Omer reports September 3rd, Captain S.H. Clark, 3rd Wilts attached to RFC number 1 AD, died of multiple gunshot wounds September 2nd, result of aerial raid. The Army Council expressed their sympathy. Trevor Henshaw's research confirmed that he was killed during an enemy bombing raid of Saint-Omer. The family tradition is that his death was a result of an enemy bombing on the hotel in which he was billeted. The Roll of Honour at Marlborough College, which was compiled about 1922, states that he was mortally wounded while at rest some miles behind the lines. He was an exceptionally brave and efficient pilot and earned his military cross by magnificent work. It was largely due to his fine example that 3 other officers in his flight received the military cross on the same occasion. According to one report, at 10:15 p.m. on the night of the 2nd to 3rd September 1917, a German air raid dropped 5 bombs. 3 fell within a few yards of the officers' hospital at 10 Stationary Hospital. This was located in the Pensionnat Saint-Joseph, La Malaisie. All windows were smashed and much other damage done. The same reports that Sydney was admitted to 10 Stationary Hospital, but already dead on arrival from Aircraft Depot 1. Sydney was reburied at Longness Saint-Omer Souvenir Cemetery. His effects included 2 cigarette cases, 1 silver match case, and 1 silver sovereign case. The names of Basil and Sydney are both together in the war memorial outside St. Nicholas's Church, Perfect. His younger brother Maurice was inspired by Sydney to join the new Royal Air Force in 1918. My mother's first husband, Orban Rouse, was badly wounded in the Battle of Loos in 1915. As for my mother, she spent the Second World War as a widow, driving St. John's ambulance, especially during the Blitz.